All right, the reality of waiting. In 1 Kings chapter 17 verses 1 to 6. Let me read it for us. Now Elijah the Tishbite from Tishbe in Gilead said to Ahab, "As the Lord, the God of Israel lives, whom I serve, there will be neither dew nor rain in the next few years except at my word." Then the word of the Lord came to Elijah, "Leave here, turn eastward and hide in the Kerith ravine east of the Jordan. You will drink from the brook, and I have directed the ravens to supply you with food there." So he did what the Lord had told him. He went to the Kerith ravine east of the Jordan, stayed there. The ravens brought him bread and meat in the morning and bread and meat in the evening, and he drank from the brook. Now Elijah came out of nowhere and pronounced a drought on Israel. Why drought? Probably because the god that they were worshiping was Baal, and Baal is the god of rain and thunder, the god of storms. So God said, you know what? Since your God is a god of rain, let me just hold the rain and see what happens. And so then Elijah goes away and stays near a brook. And at this brook there is water, but there is no food. And so every morning he wakes up, he brushes his teeth with maybe a twig or something, and he drinks some water, and he's hungry, and he's waiting for food. And then a couple ravens come with bread and meat. He eats the food, drinks the water, and just waits around. His servant is probably with him. And by afternoon, there is no food. He drinks a little more water, and he just waits for his food to come. Then in the evening, the food comes. Ravens bring food in the morning and evening. So he has to wait. And this is a little lesson that God is teaching him. In fact, of all the miracles that God did through Elijah, this one is directed toward him. All the other miracles were directed away from him, through him. And so God is teaching this little lesson that Elijah has to wait. Everyone must wait. If you've been a Christian long enough, or if you've been in the ministry long enough, you will learn that it is a mandatory lesson. Abraham had to wait for 25 years. Moses had to wait for 40 years to get his calling. David had to wait after he was anointed with oil to become the king. He went back and he was still a shepherd. And then years later is when he became king. Disciples were in the upper room for 10 days, and Jesus said, "Wait for the gift that my Father promised, and it'll be a few days." And they just waited. It happened to be 10 days. Even Jesus had 18 years of obscurity. You would think for a person who's going to die at 33, that Jesus would have started his ministry, I don't know, maybe 20, and done a ministry for 13 years. Or when he was 12 and he mesmerized the teachers of the law with his knowledge of the law, he could have started his ministry right then. But no, he had 18 years of obscurity, and then he burst forth for 3 years of ministry. Everybody has to wait. God is not in a hurry at all. God is not in a hurry. He could have done creation in 3 seconds. Instead, it took 6 days. He did a part, then he waited, morning and evening. Next day, another part, waited, morning and evening. God is not in a hurry. He could have done redemption very quickly, right after sin, but he waited 4,000 years. God is not in a hurry at all. The servant always waits for the master. Luke chapter 12 verse 36 reads, "Like servants waiting for their master to return from the wedding banquet, so that when he comes and knocks, they can immediately open the door for him." The lesser always waits for the greater. And if you find that you're not waiting at all, it may be that we are moving ahead of God. And we should not be moving ahead of God. We should be waiting for God to move first, and then we move.